Nebula is a really weird hero to play. I think a lot of people on True Solo don't like playing her that much, and I get it. You need to flip down a lot, like a lot, and you need to build a deck that will be able to handle down flipping down a ton. It's rough. It is really rough, and there's a lot of timing issues. There's a lot of things to figure out, and her deck is kind of weird. The mechanics, right, with all the upgrades and how they work, it's weird. I'm not gonna lie. It's really weird to kind of work out. But once you get into a system and you get into a flow, I think it works pretty well. And this is how I play her. Now, again, this isn't the best way to play her, but this way works. And this way, people are going to critique a little bit because it's kind of a bit overkill. Because I really don't want main schemes to pop, and you'll see it in this deck that I get really cautious about it. But I think for somebody who isn't an advanced Nebula player but wants to get into Nebula, this will kind of help you out and get you a better feel and allow you to make adjustments to the different cards. So let's go down the table, let's look at the deck, and then we'll do some opening hands and do some final pushes. All right, here we go. So we are doing this in Justice. I think Justice is the best way to use her personally. I've seen people do leadership, and that's not bad either. But this is a Justice Guardian deck, right? So that's the main focus that it's going to be Justice Guardian. We're going to have things that confuse or reduce the amount of threat on the main scheme, and that's really important because there are a lot of times I think people will be flipped down. They'll let the villain scheme, and then they'll get an advance, and then you're just way behind. It's really hard to catch up. So anyway, that's like the rough idea, right? We want to keep the threat down, confuse, all that fun stuff, and we want to build her out as we go along. And it's also a Guardians deck. Half of it's a Guardians deck. I think she makes a lot of sense as kind of like the leader of the Guardians. So let's work left to right. Let's talk about allies first of all. So the very first one is Martin X, mainly because he's a cheap ally, right? 3 costs, but it really be 2 because we're a Guardian trait. 114, that 4 hit points is going to help a lot. I like Groot, just so that after Groot defends against attack, you get to heal 2 damage. It's really nice. I don't ever attack with him, by the way. Like, in my opinion, don't ever attack with him. Just keep him as a blocker. Rocket will take care of minions for us because it does 4 damage to minions, which is super helpful. And then Drax is going to help us take out the villain, which is very nice because he'll be swinging 3 each time, which will do some pretty quick work. Now, these are a little weird, right? These are a little weird. These aren't as popular. There's 2 expensive ones. You could probably switch one out if you really wanted to. But we have Arrows because he's pretty cheap. It allows us to confuse minions in play if we use mental resources. Quasar allows us to remove 1 threat from each scheme in play, which is actually just really nice in general, in my opinion. Venom and Jack Flag are expensive, and these are going to be hard to run both of these in this deck. But for the most part, you should be able to roughly keep the main scheme down to 0, right? And if you can, then while there is no threat in the main scheme, reduce all consequential damage by 1. So he's a 4-2-3-4 hero or ally, sorry. And that's pretty strong. That's pretty good. If you can't keep it down, then switch to Jack Flag, right? Because you get the ammo counters to place 1 on, and then Jack Flag, remove 1 ammo counter from him, and then deal 2 damage to your enemy, which is really nice to exhaust him and do that. So I like that build a lot, or I like to do that a lot, because again, it helps keep the threat down, but then you use the counters, which is pretty cool. I think it's just a pretty cool system overall. But it's hard to play Jack Flag and Venom, so I kind of get that. So you adjust accordingly. Now we're going to be flipping down and back up a lot. So I personally like lay down the law. After you change form, remove 3 threat from the scheme. If you use a mental resource, remove 4. Now we have a resource generator, but if this is not enough for you, feel free to put in the Justice resource generator if you need it. I don't know if you will, but feel free to do that. I think Fast is huge for her. So it's only if you're a Guardian trait, which is on your hero side, you will be take 1 damage and confuse the villain. We're going to want to confuse the villain. If you're playing against a steady or stalwart villain, it's really hard to run Nebula. I'm going to be completely honest. It's really hard. It can be done, but it's very hard because you want to be an alter ego as much as possible. We have Endurance, add more light because she only has 9 hit points, which I think is a bit low for her, but whatever. We have our doubles, by the way, and I didn't call them that. We have team building, and really this is just for our allies, right? All of our allies are Guardian allies, so it's going to reduce the cost of them, of each of them by 1. So even though some of them were expensive, like a 3-3-3-2, it's now a 2-2-2-1, right? 3-3-2-1. Helps us out the cost a lot. Nowhere I like a lot for Guardian builds. Increase your ally limit by 1, and after a player plays a Guardian ally, exhaust this to draw a card, right? Card draw is super useful. Counter intelligence. This is where people are going to be like, you probably don't need it. Again, I think it's a fine argument to say that you don't need it, but I've been burned so many times in getting an advance on Ultra Ego after I had already confused the villain that I get a little worried. That's all. So I have it in there just in case, or I couldn't confuse the enemy, right? And I could play that instead. Under Surveillance, put in the main scheme, it helps out a lot. And then we have Crew Quarters because I don't want to exhaust the heal. She only has 3 recovery. So when I flip down, I'd rather do Crew Quarters to do all my threat removal. Now, we need to understand, excuse me, how Nebula works. So after you play a technique upgrade, which is a bunch of her upgrades, you get to draw 2 cards, which is huge, right? We're going to want to do this on the Ultra Ego side because on the hero side, after your turn begins, resolve the special ability of each technique upgrade you control, and then discard each technique upgrade resolved this way. Now, I'm going to be honest, this is going to be kind of weird to show actual playthrough hands with this because depending on what the villain's doing, what the technique is doing, right, it's really weird, but that's fine. We'll still go through and figure it out. But so anyway, if you stay down, it allows you to trigger a bunch of our technique upgrades, especially if you do things like lethal intent, right? So if you're down and you have an upgrade or 2 out on the table and you flip up, then you can use lethal intent to use the special ability, and then the next round be able to use the special ability again, and you get rid of those upgrades, right? So that's the rough idea with her deck. And then you have Gamora, which helps and all that fun stuff, but you're just trying to get her cards out there. Get blockers out there because, again, she doesn't have that much life. When you flip down, I like to heal with Crew Quarters and then just get more card draw to get more out there. And she does have a 2/2/2 stat line, which is really useful because that should help you keep the threat in check, hopefully. So let's talk a bit about strategy. We already talked a little bit about it, but it's all about board control. This is going to really test you on board control. I like to make sure that before I flip down, the main scheme's at 0. Hopefully the villain is confused, right? Or we have a counterintelligence out there, so I don't have to worry about, again, something crazy happening because those things always seem to happen when you flip down. So I like to get my board kind of built out while I'm putting allies out there, and then just kind of, there's not really a big push, I should say. I very rarely with Nebula is there a big push at the end. It's kind of you just slowly kind of progressing through the game and working your way through is really what it ends up being like. So it's kind of weird. I'll be honest. It's a little bit weird to navigate Nebula. Doesn't mean she's a bad hero. You just got to flip down a lot. And if it's a villain that schemes a lot, it's really hard to flip down. Like Mojo, for example, is really hard on Nebula. Like really hard. Stalwart and steady villains are really hard with Nebula. Can it be done? Yes, but it's going to be really hard to do. So I just want to really stress that because I think people will take on harder villains. Start with some of the easier ones that you can handle because it's going to be difficult. So let's pop down. Let's do some opening hands and then some final pushes. All right. So one of the most fun things for me with Nebula is I think she's up there in heroes of teaching you how to read the board game state. Right? Like truly understanding what cards have already gone through, like checking the discard pile, knowing what has a good chance of popping up, what you have to deal with in the future, and then just kind of taking risks on certain things, right? It is a little trickier to play her and deal with some stuff. So you're really going to learn, in my opinion, to read the board state well. There are some heroes we don't really have to worry about, like Wolverine. I can just start pushing through whenever I feel like it, and Wolverine is going to start destroying, right? Simple as that. Doctor Strange is no one. You can generally just push through and you don't really have to worry about reading the board state too much, except for very hard villains. So we're almost done shuffling this up. I want to go for her resource generator right away. Nowhere is probably really big right away. Team building would be nice. And then after that, just getting her techniques out, especially on Ultra Ego side, so I can draw up and get extra cards. So it's kind of weird. Number one priority probably is her ship, right? To get that out, because just resource generators are huge for solo. Past that, probably technique card would be next in order to play, or maybe first to get the card draw and then get the ship out there. There's a few ways to do it, but again, kind of figuring out what you got going on. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, so let's see what we got. Oops. All right, so we have some of her cards, technique cards, which is nice. Think Fast, Lethal Intent, and the ship, and Martin. Ooh, okay. So I probably wouldn't worry about damage yet with this. So this allows you to gain retaliate and deal 4 damage. I wouldn't worry about this because evasive maneuvering I think is huge because we'll be able to stun or confuse an enemy, which I'll probably want to flip down and do. Think Fast, we won't have to do with Invasive Maneuvering. Lethal Intent, I don't think we want yet. Martin X could be nice, and the ship, again, is pretty huge. So 1, 2, 3. Okay, not really what I wanted, but that's fine. Let's dump 2 cards to get the ship into play. All right, we'll get the ship in play. We can exhaust the ship to play Invasive Maneuvering, which will allow us to draw 2 cards because it's our first technique card. Combat Ready and Endurance. So Combat Ready allows us to shuffle 2 technique upgrades from your discard pile back into your deck, or you can discard cards from the top of your deck until you get a technique upgrade, put that upgrade into play, and resolve its special ability, which could be useful. But I think I'm going to shuffle back in. Yeah, I'm going to shuffle back in. Because Weapon Master or Wide Stance and Weapon Master would both be really nice to still have in the future. So let's shuffle those cards back in. Now, Endurance would be really nice to play. But Martin X will only block for like a round. So let's throw away Martin X to put Endurance in, and I'll hold on to Weapon Master. Sorry, we'll flip up at this point. And I'll probably thwart 2 if that's out of control, or 2 to a minion, right? Whatever needs to be done. If we want to do 2 damage, that's fine too. And then we can ready up. So we'll hold on to this. 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, cool. So let's say we took a hit, right? Main scheme goes up by 1. We took a hit, all that fun stuff. So now we get to do the technique upgrade, which is to confuse the enemy. So we're going to confuse them, which is super fun. Okay. What I'll probably do at this point is flip down. Use Nebula Ship to play Weapon Master, which allows us to draw 2 cards. And we got some fun stuff. Actually, what we should have done probably, because the main scheme is on first, let me back up, is thwart the 2, get the main scheme back down to 0, and then go up. So then, at this rate, I probably do a double and a single. 2, 3... to probably actually throw away Rocket as well, unless there were minions to deal with, to put in Venom. Venom would probably be down to consequential damage, should be fine. I might actually hold on to these cards. Venom can do damage or can thwart whatever's really needed, and then we can ready up. And I'm actually going to hold on to both of these. So we would draw back up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. Now, let's say they scheme. They were confused from before, so we're good. Our turn now. First thing we want to do is use Nebula Ship to play, let's say, Unyielding Persistence, which allows us to draw 2 cards. Lethal Intent. Oh my goodness, here we go. Now, what I would probably do is throw away a Lay Down the Law, play Crew Quarters so we can heal, because we never healed from before. And let's flip up. Well, after we flip up, do we want to do Lay Down the Law? Probably not. Probably don't even need to. Nah, we're not even going to Lay Down the Law. We're going to throw away Lay Down the Law to play a Cutthroat Ambition. So we have 3 of these in play at this point. And we get a +1/+1 Stalwart. We have Piercing and Overkill. And we have Retaliate, which is nice. What we could do is dump 2 of these cards to play Lethal Intent to do 2 specials. So we could get a tough status and deal 4 damage, or remove 3 threat, whichever works out better for us. If the threat removal was done, let's say, we could do 3 damage there, and we could do 3 because of our thing that we have going on. All right, so let's say we ready up now. We draw our 5 cards. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We had our tough because we did our special ability from Lethal Intent. So if we just get hit with the tough, that's fine. A little more main scheme goes on. That's cool. Now, in the beginning of our turn, we remove 3 threat from a scheme. We get another tough on, and we deal 4 damage to the enemy. Cool. And then it's our turn. We can use we can use a double to play Under Surveillance onto the main over there. I think at this point, I would use Nebula Ship to play Think Fast to confuse the villain. We could thwart off to make sure Venom does damage. Venom might be out at this point. We could flip down, throw away Counterintelligence to play Weapons Master to draw 2 cards if we get anything interesting. No, we're going to hold on to that, and we heal up 1 more. Get to ready up. Again, I think we confuse the enemy. Yeah, we confuse the enemy, so we hold on to these 2. 3, 4, 5, 6. Enemy can't do much because they're confused, so it's our turn. And that means we're going to actually probably use a Combat Ready to shuffle 2 more cards in. If we needed attack, let's say a tough one I like. I like Unyielding Persistence a lot. And let's say we need a weapon master, right? Let's say we need to put them in. We can shuffle them. We'd also heal ourselves up at this point. Get that into play. And then we would use Nebula Ship. Play wide stance. Allows us to draw 2 cards. Jack flag and think fast. All right, cool. Let's flip back up. We can now, when Nebula is in hero form, reduce the amount of damage she takes by each attack by 1. That's fun. We could probably use a double to play team training at that point. And I would use team training and throw away 2 cards to put in Gamora. And I might hold on to a think fast at this point. So after you play Gamora, choose a technique upgrade you control and resolve its special ability. So we could deal 4 damage to an enemy, right? Do that. Gamora could do damage. We could do damage and throw it, right? Now we've already kind of got built out at this point. Hold on to think fast, like I said. 2, 3, 4, 5. During our turn, we can look at the top 3 cards of the encounter, discard 1, put the others back in order, deal 4 damage. Sorry, this should be ready up too. And then, oops, yeah, we're on hero side. We should have been readied up. Let's say we took some damage or whatever. That's fine because now we're getting our card Unyielding Persistence, which will give us a tough status if need be. We could do a think fast. Actually, it's not a bad idea. We could think fast to confuse the villain. Let's say we flip back down. We can use this to play an Unyielding Persistence, draw 2 cards, Groot, and Cutthroat Ambition. So that would be a little weird to play. I don't know. You could decide from here what you want to do. I would heal up probably. I don't know if I would dump all 3 of these cards. That'd be a lot to dump. Yeah, maybe. Let's just say we felt like dumping all 3. And then next turn you would draw 2 more, then shuffle them back in and draw up. So you're already built out. You're kind of rocking and rolling at that point. We have a blocker. We have Gamora, which is nice. We're doing some damage, right? We're getting our upgrades in, but you get the rough idea. Like I'm flipping down constantly to get her going. So let's set up for, for a final push at the end. All right, let's say we're getting near the end of the game, right? So we're built out. We have a couple techniques out. Let's say we just flipped down the previous round. We were able to get these out, right? We focus on that. We have Nebula Ship, which is huge. Endurance is huge. Team building, nice. And we have Rocket out there, let's just say. So we shuffle these up, and then we draw 6 cards. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. So once again, the villain's at 2. And then 18 the final flip. So let's say they do their things, whatever. It's our turn. Oh my gosh, Lethal Intent. Are you kidding me? All right, so I would use Nebula Ship to play Cutthroat Ambition. We have a ton in there now. We get to draw 2 cards, a Drac and Counterintelligence. Okay, cool. So I would flip up. At this rate, what am I swinging for a lot? I'm swinging for 3. Which is nice, but I don't think it's super needed at this point. So let's swing for 3 and knock the villain down so that they have 18 life left, right? We'll do that. So we gain Piercing Overkill, Retaliate, Piercing Overkill, and +1/+1 in Stalwart. Okay, that's fine. So now I would probably play a Lethal Intent and use a double at this rate to do 4 damage and give myself a tough status, right? So now they were at 18 down to 14. And I probably play another Lethal Intent and do another double, deal 4 more, so they're down to 12. And let's say remove 3 threat, right? Let's just say we need to do that. And then I can use team building and throw away 2 cards to put Drax in. And Drax can do 3, so they were down to 9 life left. And let's say Rocket just kind of hangs out and is going to take the hit. So then we can ready up, draw cards, 1, 2, 3 cards. And then shuffle this up. We get an extra bad card. So let's say some threat goes on. All that fun stuff. Let's say Rocket takes the hit, gets knocked out. I think they had like 8 or 9 life left, let's just say. So it's our turn. Remove 3 threat. So let's say they're at 9 life, I think I said. So that does 4 damage. It puts them down to 5. More threat. We get another tough. We should probably actually taken tough because I think we had a tough last time, but whatever. It doesn't really make a difference at this point. Then it's our turn. Oh, shoot. We never drew back up. Okay, so it's up to 5. That's cool. So we can't really do much. And this is one of the weird parts where you can get kind of stuck after you got rid of all your technique cards. But at this rate, what I really do is I would throw away Under Surveillance to confuse the enemy, take the damage. Let's say we thwart to keep it down. Drax can swing for another 3. That's fine. I would flip down and do a combat ready to take 2 of our techniques and shuffle them back in. And then ready myself up. And again, they are confused, so we're hanging in there. Throw this out. A little more threat goes to the main scheme. They are confused. Now it's, oh shoot, we got to draw back up before I forget. 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. They're confused. Now it'd be our turn. Now we can use Nebula's ship. Exhaust that to get evasive maneuvering in there. Allows us to draw 2 cards. Lay down the law and arrows, which is less ideal, but that's fine. We could flip up. We can use team building and a double to play Gamora, which allows us to stun or confuse an enemy. So we could stun that enemy if we really need to. We could swing 5 here. We could swing for another 2. We could then use 2 cards to put in Martin X, who could swing for another 1, right? And we're probably pretty good at that point because that was 5, 6, 7 damage total. And then 8 with that, which would have done it. Again, allies, I think, are really important with her. We're getting them out there. If we had nowhere in play, which would have also been really key, and I should have thought about that. But nowhere would have gotten us extra card draw every single time we put a Guardian ally out there. Nowhere would have been another card I should have gotten earlier and shown that as an example. But even without that and the extra card draw, you're still able to kind of get it going. Again, it's understanding the villain and how to work with them, but you get the idea. So hopefully that helps with Nebula. Again, I get Nebula is a bit confusing, is a little hard to work, right? Nebula can be hard to work, but it really is just timing out those confuses so you can flip down, get that extra card draw, which is super useful, and using Nebula's ship to get that card draw is super useful. I like Endurance a lot, and like I said, Nowhere, it would have been nice if I got that out earlier, or if I did the example of the Final Push putting that out there. I completely forgot about that for a second, but every time I got a Guardian out there, would have got me an extra card, which helps a lot. Again, just timing out your flips, your confuses, all that fun stuff to get that out there, to get the extra card draw, and keeping evasive or keeping your techniques out there so that you can do things like Lethal Intent to get those specials running quite a few times, which will help out a lot. So anyway, if you made this far in the video, make sure to hit like, subscribe, all that fun stuff. It really helps out. If I didn't mention it before, Nebula's deck list will be downloaded in the description. Make sure to check it out and check out the other links that are down there. And if you want to see how to play the greatest hero in Marvel Champions, she's right here. Valkyrie is the absolute GOAT. I go through of how I play her, and hopefully it helps you all out. And yeah, hopefully you've been liking these videos, and I will see you all next time.